Hey everyone, welcome to the Colpack and Izzo podcast as we are in March and ready for the Summit League Basketball Tournament for the 16th consecutive year. Sioux Falls is hosting the bid to get to the NCAA Tournament. North Dakota State men and women in two different spots as they get set to tip off. The Bison women, if you're listening to this, will tip off on Saturday afternoon against Denver. The Bison men playing Sunday evening against the University of St. Thomas. NDSU women have never made it to the championship game in their Division I run. The Bison looking for a sixth straight appearance in the Summit League championship game. Two different boats going two different directions right now.
Yeah, before we get into tourney fever, I need to know who taught you how to park. Because out in the station, you're not even close to the lines out there. You're taking up two spots.
There are no lines in the WDA. Are you talking about the WDAY parking lot?
Yeah.
There are no lines out there.
It's a total violation. It's like, is this a Oswego thing? You just roll up and park where you want?
Pretty much at this place.
That's why you got your car towed by Tom Crean.
It wasn't our car. It was the Forum car that got towed.
So anyway, I digress. It is tourney time, and good thing for the Bison men that they had a week off, I think. You know, I know you asked, and we were at media day of sorts yesterday with the players and Dave Richmond, and you asked everybody if do you want to play right away or do you need some time? And I'm of the mindset that I think when you end the season with two bad losses like they did, and they didn't play well at all.
No.
I think you need time. I think time heals in this case.
Well, they couldn't have played any worse for how they played against USD and especially South Dakota State. I mean, the Jacks came in with absolutely nothing to play for and just flattened them.
Yeah, hit 8 in their first 9 shots, and you had the feeling it was almost over then.
Yeah, it definitely felt it. And it definitely was. But that leads to the whole thing of this entire men's basketball season where everybody literally has beaten everybody else, which makes for starting tonight for the first game for the Oral Roberts South Dakota game, everybody's still got a real chance to do this.
Yeah, I wouldn't shock me if the winner of the Oral Roberts South Dakota game makes Tuesday night. That would not shock me. It is that even. I mean, you look at South Dakota, they're dangerous. Oral Roberts has 3 veteran starters that are as veteran as anybody. Granted,
ORU's played bad down the stretch, but never know. All it takes is one, is what they all say.
Yeah, I mean, those 3 28-year-olds, you know, I mean, they might, figure out this is their last shot at it and go and just take it to another level.
The neat part about it, I think, for fans that are either going to go or watch, is the last 2 years, it has been a clear-cut, hands-down, boom, this is South Dakota State and Oral Roberts were the overwhelming favorites to win this thing. That is not the case here in 2024, that, as you just mentioned, it's wide open. And for the Bison men, their road starts with St. Thomas, a team that they just beat a couple weeks ago. Andrew Morgan went crazy in that game. The Tommies still have athleticism, but it still looks like a Division III team out there at some points to me.
In a couple instances, yes, I agree with that. Okay, why is the Summit so even? And I'm writing about this. I will ask you this. We had the all Summit first team, second team, all defensive, all newcomer. I give you the all transfer portal team.
Yeah, right.
Baylor Shireman, Max Asmus, Andrew Rohde, Grant Nelson, Josiah Alec at Nebraska.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
A Denver kid who's at Iowa State.
Yeah.
Jones.
Robert Jones. Yep.
You take those 6, and I asked Dave Richmond this yesterday, you take those 6 players, and not to mention a couple others that, who's the guy that from Kansas City went to Penn State?
Raquandis Mitchell.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not playing much there.
No.
Bad move. But you take those 6 players, add a couple other transfers, you could make a deep run into the NCAA tournament.
NCAA tournament with that group, there's no doubt. Shireman is going to win the Player of the Year in 2 separate leagues in 3 years. Think about that. He was the Player of the Year 2 years ago in this conference. He's going to be the Big East Player of the Year when they announce that next week.
And he's the first NCAA player, I don't have the stats in front of me, he has so many points, so many rebounds, so many assists, and so many made 3-pointers.
So is this the future of this conference? Is what we saw this year?
100%.
This is what it's going to be from now on?
Yes. Huh? Yeah. You develop a player, and this player, and unless somehow the collectives on these schools really take unprecedented and unforeseen.
And I mean, Zeke Mayo was offered a lot of money. He decided to come. He got money to stay in Brookings, but he was offered a substantial sum. I don't know if he's going to do that again this offseason.
Well, the whisper is he's leaving. I mean, that's the whisper.
Yep. And I'm sure that'll turn into a loud rumor when we're in Sioux Falls over the weekend. But you'd like to think that you could build a team, but that's the thing, that the 2009 Bison is a thing way of the past.
Oh.
Way of the past that you're never going to see.
2014 Bison.
Yeah, I mean, that was a group that stayed together with Taylor Braun, Trayvon Wright, and Marshall Bjorklund were all 4-year seniors. There's no way they would all stay together anymore. No way.
No. I mean,
that's too bad. 5th-year seniors. I'm sorry, they all redshirted.
Right.
They all redshirted the 2010 season. That's great. Yeah, that's not going to happen anymore.
And Lawrence Alexander was a junior
that season. Yep. Who stayed. He came back for his senior season and got him back to the tournament.
No way he'd come back in this day and age with the money being thrown out there.
Not anymore. Not in that. And that's so. I guess for fans looking ahead to the NCAA tournament, I would think unless the league does something crazy in the non-conference, this tournament winner is resigned to being a 15 or a 16 seed.
And I think we'll see that in the years to come.
Yeah, that's too bad because then you are set up to lose. You might get to Dayton and can win a game that way like the Bison did a few years ago, but the days of getting a 12 like the Bison did in 2014 when they beat Oakland, or the Jacks a couple years ago getting to 13, that's not going to happen anymore.
I'd much prefer to be in that play-in bracket in the NCAA tournament.
Because
at least you have a chance to win, and it makes you feel good, and say what you want. It's still a win in the NCAA tournament.
And I guess the Bison ended up playing Duke out of that, which got them about as much exposure and notoriety as you can possibly get. They got on CBS. Now, granted,
and they played well.
In the first half, they hung around for a bit before Zion got loose and things went haywire in the second half. That's an interesting debate. I always like those 5-12, 4-13 games are upset central, and people always pick those when they're filling out their brackets. But
yeah, that's going away.
I just don't see that happening for the league unless you do something monster in the non-conference. I don't see that happening in the league.
And
anymore.
Unless you find 2 or 3 true freshmen who just develop into stars right away.
Right away. Because then, if they're doing that, I mean, Rhodey was a freshman and left.
But the odds of that are just not going to happen because the mid-major, their strength is to take where it used to be. The strength was, and I remember Saul Phillips when the Bison were practicing at Butler Fieldhouse, and that's when we were covering basketball on the road. And it was between the IUPUI and Western Illinois road trip. And I'm sitting in there in the Butler Fieldhouse with him, and he's looking up at all the banners, and he goes, okay, there's 3 in a row, then there's a couple years off. There's 2 in a row, then a couple years off. Because you develop your team, and then you hit it, and then you start over.
Yep.
Now
I remember Saul telling me that. Yep.
Now you're just starting over all the time.
Yep. I'd imagine with this, whenever this run ends for the Bison men, whether it's Sunday night, Monday, or Tuesday, there will be some significant turnover on this roster.
Probably.
I would imagine, right?
Half?
We know Bowden Skunberg is moving on. He's going to play basketball somewhere. You're saying half.
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
That's a lot. Without naming names here, because we're be speculating, maybe. I mean, look how many left after the team that made it all the way to the title game a couple years ago, and we thought that was the sky was falling there when Greasel left and Malik Harden-Hayes and Jarius Cook all moved on to different destinations, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. And that team was good. That team won 20-some-odd games in 2021.
Well, if you're not a full-time starter and not one of the guys, right away you got to wonder,
where am I going to go?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the dilemma.
This ain't football where you're one play away in football because people get injured.
Right.
And people tend to stick around longer in football because, well, you're part of the depth chart.
Yeah.
The depth chart means nothing in basketball.
No, means am I in the rotation or not?
Yeah.
And if I'm not, then maybe I can go somewhere else and be that.
Which in most cases unrealistic.
No, that's correct.
If you're not good enough to start here, what makes you think you're good enough to start anywhere else?
Yeah. I think it will be active on both fronts. I think Dave's going to look to add some guys as well, whether it's through the portal, through the JUCO ranks, whatever. I think there's mutual movement.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're not starting and you're not playing, but you are getting a full scholarship, you're getting cost of attendance, you go in the portal.
It's all up for grabs then.
Yeah, there's no guarantee.
Nothing. Nope. We've seen that time and time again.
Dom, that's $25,000 a year. It's $20,000 for tuition, books, and everything else. Yep. Then cost of attendance is $3,800.
Yep.
Plus maybe a couple other shekels here and there,
which is allowed now. You're taking a risk. There's no doubt about it. You're betting on yourself, and more often than not, that is not panned out. That's the thing there. On the women's side, I think there's a real sense of energy, optimism. I think from basketball folks that I talked to, like, all right, well, is there a chance? Can they do this? And the Bison have not won a tournament game since 21. Jory Collins' second year. Ironically enough, it was against Denver, who they're playing on
They've only
Saturday.
won 2 in the whole Summit League history since 2008-9.
Right.
Or 7-8. Yeah, 7-8.
Well, they didn't go there. They weren't eligible for that first year.
Yeah, but they were in the tournament.
Right. No, they were not eligible.
No, that's right.
That first year, they were not eligible for the tournament. So there's a long lineage of being one and done, including last year. But I think the vibe, the talent around this year's team is so different compared to the one that went down to Sioux Falls last year.
Well, L. Evans, you start with a legitimate, top flight player in the Summit League, and you have a veteran guard in Heaven Hamling. The thing is, you have 4 true freshmen who are playing roles.
Yep.
And so that's going to be something to look for.
Yep.
Last year, they were deer in the headlights for whatever reason.
They were. They laid an egg, as Jory Collins told me on my show yesterday against Kansas City. But this Denver team, they have a couple players. JoJo Jones is a talented player. She was a second league all Summit selection yesterday. But they've handled this team. I do not see them falling flat on tomorrow. Now, semifinal, that's a different story. That's a different stage against an Oral Roberts team that's pretty I'm assuming Oral Roberts is going to beat UND.
Yeah, you voted half their roster in the first or second team.
You know what? And I was rewarded on that. Did you see the ballot? I was not far off on that.
Yeah.
So
you were close.
People that were screaming at me about that, they can go kick rocks as far as I'm concerned. But back to the Bison part of that, and we'll get to the Evans part because I think that's something to follow whenever the Bison season is done. Because I really think there's, I don't know if there's an opportunity, but I'm sure there's got to be whispers out there.
If I'm a Big Ten team, I'd
right?
Oh yeah.
Is South Dakota State vulnerable? They still have not lost a game, but they're down to 7 scholarship players. Does that catch up eventually? Or
yeah,
no?
Well, they're vulnerable. Yes, I think they are. I do. Okay. And I said this on your show and podcast over a month ago.
The Bison are going to win this
thing.
I
did.
Yeah.
And I'm still standing by it.
Okay. That means this is an incredible home court advantage, though, for South Dakota State. You cannot discount that. There'll be 5,000 people there on Monday afternoon when they probably play USD in the semifinal, and it's going to be even more for the championship.
But I think it helped that they competed in that environment down at Frost Arena.
Yeah, which is a big day.
A week ago.
It was the final game at Frost, and it was packed down there. The way that they won against South Dakota, I thought was impressive because they made 1 3 in the game, but they grinded it out. They pounded the ball inside, and with Draper, and I'm keeping my eyes on Avery Coonan. She's the next one.
Yes.
I really think Coonan's on ascending that this time next year she's going to be an all-Summit League player.
I just think in title games at some point South Dakota State's going to shoot 29%. I do. It's just the way it goes.
Yep.
You're not gonna light it up every title game.
Yeah.
For 10, 12 years in a row? At some point it's like the Wisconsin factor when the Bison played them in 05 when they upset them in Cole Center. Wisconsin could hit the ocean.
No. And the Bison ended up winning the game.
Yeah.
All it takes is an off game like that. And then, frankly, it's what the Bison ran into last year when they played Kansas City. Nothing went early, and before you knew it, they were down 10.
Then you get tight. Yep.
And in an environment they hadn't been in before. I don't foresee that happening tomorrow. And if it does, boy, that is a massive, massive disappointment for a season that, they've won 19 games. That's the most they've won in the Division I era. I think everybody has hopes for them to get to Tuesday, and I'd be intrigued. I know Mike and I talked about this earlier this week. I still don't think it's going to cause people to get in their cars and drive down to Sioux Falls.
I don't either. No.
I wish it would, but you think it will get any sort of juice around here if the Bison are playing for the automatic bid on the women's side?
Yeah, people will be watching it here.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's going to get in the car.
So what do you think? 100 people are going to be in Sioux Falls for the next couple of days?
Probably.
Because the Bison men really haven't instilled a whole lot of confidence, I would imagine, that they could be one and done.
I'm just amazed that when with this Division I thing, you remember, let's say 30 years ago, the thought of going to the NCAA tournament as a Division I school was just so far off the radar, it wasn't even thought about. Yep. Like in football. If you would have told anybody in 1990 that the Bison would have won 2 or 3 games against the Gophers in football, as bad as the Gophers were around that time, you'd say there's no way. Yeah. And so I just think and so now that it's here, now that the men have been to the dance 4 times, should have been 5. The women have a chance this year. I don't feel the weight.
The disconnect is there. That's something we've talked. You and I have done this podcast for years. That it's just the disconnect with basketball. I'll get it next week when I'm in Sioux Falls. Hey, who's going to be the backup wide receiver?
Yeah. And full disclosure, I mean, when the Bison men played Duke in the NCAA tournament, and I had 2 stories going that day. We got that day early. I had a preview of Zion Williamson, Krzyzewski, Duke, all that. We were there doing the story. The same day, a story on the kicking, spring football kicking situation with Reinholtz.
Yeah, Jake Reinholtz is going to take over. Yep.
And what had more popularity?
I know exactly what did.
Jake Reinholtz.
I know it. I got asked the same time about who do you think the backup center going to be during spring ball?
They're playing Duke.
Yep. Doesn't matter.
Duke.
I know. Doesn't matter. That's the way it is. Maybe we're to fault for that. I'm sure there's some of it to come on our shoulders of it, but because we know what drives people's attention and drives readership, drives listeners, drives viewers. But still, this is the biggest thing in college sports is the NCAA basketball tournament.
I know.
It's not even close.
It's a head scratcher.
Until this expanded college football playoff comes, and I think I really think it will be bigger than maybe. Because I don't know how many Cinderellas you're going to get. That's why what makes March so much fun.
You're right.
I don't know.
But again, with the portal, I think you're going to see the Cinderella story
might be diluted too.
Get diluted too. Absolutely.
You saw last year though, like Fairleigh Dickinson is a 16 and they win. That grabbed everybody. St. Peter's a couple years before that got everybody's attention. I mean, that still is happening in basketball.
We'll see.
I hope it still continues because that's what makes this month so much fun and the lead up to it, and which. Frankly, as us going down to Sioux Falls makes us wonder, like, I don't know how long we're going to be there. We could be there a couple days. We could be there 5 days. That's the great question about it all of what's going to happen over this event. That's what makes it exciting to me. I will leave you with this. We talked about it on the BMZ earlier this week because I had people ask me, well, what about Minneapolis? What about a different location for the tournament? Do you see this ever leaving Sioux Falls?
I don't. I mean, again, we talked about this on Hot Mic that it'd be like, why would the FCS leave Frisco, Texas? Why would you leave a good thing?
You wouldn't. They make money. Oh. They do well attendance-wise.
It's still centrally somewhat located, other than Oral Roberts.
I do think, here's a hot take Denver. For you before we go. This time next year, there will be a 10th team in the league.
Who?
I don't know.
Did you see me just like come out of my chair here?
There will be 10. They can't do this again next year at 9. They will get to 10.
Northwest Missouri State?
I love Northwest Mo. That's my betting favorite.
But who would you steal? Edwardsville?
No, you don't. All you need is one. I would take them.
I know. But what if? I mean, they got to go Division I. I mean, that's,
I do good them.
Is there anybody in the Ohio Valley you'd take?
Your friends at Lindenwood? You got to find a home for them in football, though.
Well, the Pioneer. Be perfect.
Yeah. That's question 1A when I see Josh Fenton on Sunday. It's like, where are you at on league expansion?
You love my Lindenwood connection.
Yeah, because, it makes sense. But go for it.
North of St. Louis, St. Charles, beautiful area.
It's in the footprint of it. So I'm on board with Northwest Mo.
And they're really right down the road from the Pioneer League office in St. Louis.
Northwest Mo makes sense because they've been good in football and they're good in basketball. Why not go get them?
Yeah, I don't know why there's no movement there. Is there any? Have you heard anything?
No, I talked actually with our good friend Bob Sundell, who's a Northwest Mo Hall of Famer. He said a couple years ago, I think there was some push. You talked to some prominent alums, they want it to happen, but from presidents, it's not a thing right now.
Let me call the Lindenwood president.
You make that happen.
I'll make it happen.
Right? You got to have 10. You got to have an even number these days. That's every league is doing that. Look at the MAC. Our friends there just did it.
What's going to happen when St. Thomas leaves for the Big East?
Well, that's not for a couple years yet. So can we at least enjoy even number until they both? I'm saying,
how about 8?
Well, what year is it? It's 2024. St. Thomas will be gone in 2027.
MIAC kicked them out. Let's kick them out. Get out of here.
They got to win it first before you kick them out.
They're not even eligible, and we'll kick them out.
Wait till they get eligible, then boot them out of the league. 2027. That's when they're going to be in the Big East. That's my call on that. All right.
Well, I'll learn how to park.
Safe travels to you and Mike.
Let me park your car for you in Sioux Falls. Can I do that?
After how I drove back, getting back, sure, you can certainly do that. Mike, Jeff, myself, Eric Bennell, Matt Zimmer, Marcus Trax. We got a whole crew of foreign communications personnel.
Are we chartering a plane?
We should.
Yeah.
In Sioux Falls. You can find it Sioux Falls Live, Grand Forks Herald, Inforum, WDAY.
Sioux Falls Live.
Yeah, we'll have you covered for the next 5 days for the Summer League basketball
Brainerd
tournament.
Dispatch.
About to tip off later today with the playing games. Yeah, you got everybody.
That's everybody.
That's everyone.
All right.
For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. Thanks for listening, everybody, to the Kolpack and Izzo podcast.